ladies and gentlemen. We are trying to get a live out of the way today before we head off to the racetrack here in Australia. Sorry, just a little bit of a hiccup there. But we are here, and we just watched the Chili Bowl events. I guess we could start the show off by saying, thank you to the Chili Bowl people who were doing the track work. I know that some people are already complaining about the rubbered up experience we had in the last 15 or 10 laps. Mind you that we've seen that before. If you remember the year that Christopher Bell made Kyle Larson cry when he hit him out of the lane and passed him on the last lap. It was a rubbered up track at the end, but that track started extremely narrow laned. Even with the full track rework, in that scenario, it was a one lane scenario for 30-35 laps, a dyno session around the bottom, and it slicked off and rubbered up on that dyno session line around the bottom. Never really widened out that entire race, at least based off my current recollection. Not for sure on that, but I'm pretty sure that's exactly how it went. I would say that the track reworked, or how the track was worked today, was extremely better than the winged outlaw race from the shootout or the previous years of the Chili Bowl, where we have a dyno session for 35 laps and then somewhat of a race for the last 10 or 15. Look at Dason Persley. You would have never seen that guy come from 20th to where he was if that track had been fully reworked. It just would have been almost purely impossible, because there would have been no racing grooves around the racetrack, a top or a bottom, to really maneuver and work around the surface. Now, I do think that the cushion gets a little too cowboy up for some guys, and they're in the A main. That was their goal the entire week. It wasn't necessarily to win. They're running 12th or 13th or 8th all the way to the back, and they just dropped to the bottom to finish the race because they've already accomplished their goal. And that's what slicks off and rubbers up that bottom side as much as it does, where you have the guys who are trying to win up on the top, or trying to make something happen like Persley, and that's why they're able to make moves going through the field. But I still think, regardless of how it ended up and how it may have happened or whatever, I still think that the Chili Bowl did a better job of trying to provide a great racing surface. I know that it went rubber, but maybe there could have been maybe a little more working, but I just feel like in this scenario, we have yin for yang, and the other side is the full track rework, single file wide open around the bottom for 30 laps, and then maybe it widens out and maybe slicks off, or maybe it slicks off in that line that everyone's running and rubbers down anyway. So I think that this was a better option, because we did get to see racing right out the get-go. You haven't seen guys dicing it up at lap with 45 laps to go over the last few years. You haven't seen that. And it really only took rubber with about 18 to go, 19 to go, if I remember correctly. So it was a very interesting situation, but I also think that it was better to go that route. Obviously, Logan Seavey picking up the win. I've been trying to tell y'all he's a Kyle Larson without Kyle Larson opportunity, just another guy out there who is out. There's multiple of them, and I think Logan Seavey is the closest thing. I think he should get into wing sprint cars more. Look what he did at the Trophy Cup. Showed up, jumped in a wing car, and won the thing. He got DQ'd for being light, but that's because they ran so many laps under caution and the fuel and all this stuff. It was an interesting event, but Logan Seavey basically beat the best 360 sprint car drivers and 410 guys, because they come and do that. It's a 360 event, but he beat the best drivers in wing sprint car racing on the West Coast for sure. And then the travelers coming in, just jumping in the car and going. And that shows you how good he actually is. Especially, honestly, I think one of his most impressive things, I believe, was his NASCAR Truck Series debut at Eldora when they ran on the dirt. I think he led and was up there battling, and then for some reason the upper echelon guys just didn't call him up, or maybe he just didn't have the big checkbook to write to go to NASCAR. Like, that's how it goes. It doesn't matter how good you are if you ain't got big money backing you, or diversity. Like Kyle did have diversity, that helped out a lot. There's a lot of reasons and rhymes as to why you advance further in the racing world versus just running midgets in an occasional sprint car like a Logan Seavey. But congratulations to him. Buddy Kofoid had a shot, and I don't know who else was kind of taken back when Kofoid passed for the lead and had the lead. I felt like that maintained for more than a lap, but apparently it did not. But it is what it is. Kofoid looked like he had a better car through the entry and center, but Seavey had the better car, center exit and down the straightaway, and that's where you win the races at the Chili Bowl, is the center of the corner to the entry of the next corner, and down that straightaway. So, good job by the Victory Fuel clan and crew. I saw a lot of people kind of making some comments. Why wasn't Sammy down there? And I was trying to tell some people at Simpson that and this is when you go behind the stages, this is what you get to learn. Unfortunately, in this sport, and I'm not going to get into details because I don't know all the details. I know some details, but sometimes in this sport, those questions of why, sometimes you don't want the answers to the questions. Trust me. This sport is sometimes something that is, if you're sitting in the grandstands and you're watching the race, you could transport that into like an auditorium. You're in the crowd watching someone perform or watching a performance on stage. And if you stay within that element of the performer performing, watching the show and enjoying the show as the fan, this sport is really, really, really fun to enjoy and love. But when you start cracking that curtain and you go back there and see what's going on behind the scenes, it's just like politics. That's why I call racing a microcosm. When you start going behind the scenes over there and seeing what everybody is potentially this and that and the other, it can sometimes ruin that experience of the show. So like I said, I'm not going in details because once again, I'm not there in the rooms and all this stuff, but I don't even want to dabble into that topic. I've just seen it posted so much, people hating Sammy, that I feel like it needs to halfway be addressed. But let me tell you, no matter what it is as to why that scene didn't happen, and maybe it did happen, they just didn't catch it on camera. Y'all just maybe had not seen it. We just didn't see it. But whatever it is, if that didn't happen, I almost want to bet you it's not as bad as the rest of the stuff I'm knowing and seeing and hearing and experiencing behind these scenes, behind that curtain. It's creepy stuff, man. It's creepy stuff. But anyway, probably the biggest story to come out of the Chili Bowl was this TMez, Meseraull, and Cannon McIntosh scenario. And we're not going to play the clip itself here. Actually, let's go to this one. We're not going to play the clip itself here, but obviously, big time slider. Now, this was the bigger issue here, I think, with most people. Cannon McIntosh and TMez were the one car back here, Briggs Danner, had the advantage on the prior lap above him and TMez. So TMez was in and Cannon McIntosh was out, I believe. Danner made a mistake. TMez and them made some passes, but I feel like they didn't know, or Cannon McIntosh for sure didn't know, that they were both in the show after Briggs Danner made that mistake, and they both advanced the position. And they felt like, or Cannon McIntosh, based on his interview, felt like he was racing for the transfer spot. And he threw a slider into 3 and 4 that was definitely in the same attitude realm of I'm trying to make the Chili Bowl a main. And he hit him. And in this clip right here, TMez does end up going upside down onto his lid. And there was an issue after this happened. Apparently, they tipped the car over. There was a little bit of a fire or some kind of flame, and TMez was sitting there with his helmet open, and the guy came over with the extinguisher and hit the car, and it got all in his face, and he was upset. Don't know the actual quotations. He was upset and kind of tossed the wheel at the guy, and it struck the official, and they removed him from the building originally and then got him back in, and then all this. It was a big old crazy deal, a side show situation to this whole wreck situation that happened. And it was interesting to see how that went down. Now, obviously, TMez was a little upset. This was the interview on Flow Racing, but TMez, out of my surprise here, to be honest with you, TMez, because TMez has been somewhat of a guy, and we're going to touch on that here in a second. he's been somewhat of a guy that will get really riled up, and when something happens, and some people like it, he says what he thinks. Most TMez fans, I guarantee you, were expecting when that mic came up to TMez that he was about to let Cannon McIntosh hear it. They were expecting TMez to say F this guy or whatever, screw him, and talk about his daddy's money that he's got or something. I guarantee you people were expecting that. But TMez maybe has grown and learned, just like, hey, I said we do it on the chest too, grown and learned and took it another direction, and probably was the most humble person I had ever seen wrecked out of the Chili Bowl 8 main while running in a transfer spot on a move that didn't make the difference of if he was in the race or not. They both could have just rode to the line. Now, Cannon McIntosh, on the other hand, when he got interviewed, he's like, slide or die, right? We all heard it. He's like, what's TMez said, slide or die? So that's what we're doing, trying to make the A. And then the interviewer told him that y'all were both in. Did you know that? And he kind of like, oh, wow, didn't know that. So obviously Briggs Danner right there made that a very confusing situation. And then Cannon felt a kind of remorseful, it seemed like, after he learned both guys were in the show. Now, that quote that he used of TMez, I feel like some people think Cannon McIntosh was saying that just based on watching a TMez YouTube video or an interview that we've seen TMez go off on. And the casual open wheel, say, sprint car fan that don't watch midget racing all year, we only see sometimes TMez with just a little hot pop, little, railing off the top of his head on an interview and ha or he or don't like it or whatever. We usually see those types of clips, and that's why TMez is somewhat got a household name, is from that kind of riled up, crazy persona that he has. So when Cannon McIntosh says that, we're just thinking, oh, he must have heard him say that or do it to another guy. Actually, ladies and gentlemen, this is a clip from June 25th, 2023. That's this year, by the way. This is on 357's World of Dirt. And this was a post-race interview with TMez Meseraull, the feature winner of this event. And let's hear what was said in this scenario.
Yeah, it started out, Cannon, on that restart where you jumped the start. I don't know if you know this, but on the next one where you were leading, I let you go because the leader was you, okay? Yeah, I threw a slide job halfway down the track, and they called a yellow into one, and you know what? I still owe you from Hopstott. Remember Hopstott? Hey, I guess we're even. Hey, the guys give us a track that's slide or die, and then they don't expect us to be worked up. Hey, how you like it now?
Yeah, just got, like I said, got the front end bent up there when he slid us and fenced us under yellow. And just trying to hang on there at the end. That's all we were doing. Just hats off to the guys for putting me in position again. We just weren't able to hang on. I know I'm the better person, the better driver, so I'll shake it off. We won the last 2 nights, and we'll see what we can do tomorrow.
See a situation here in the past where TMez Meseraull had a issue with Cannon McIntosh. So this necessarily wasn't just like a new deal. This actually has some background to it. I think some newer or just casual or just Chili Bowl watchers have no idea what's going on prior to this. So when Cannon McIntosh makes that actual statement that he is, slide or die right, he's not just saying that because he's watched a TMez video. He's saying that because he's been in a situation where TMez Meseraull has, in his opinion, obviously wronged him in this instance and is on victory lane, on stage, on flow, kind of, rubbing it in his face that he won the race, slide or die. Yeah, I did this and I owe you. And obviously he just referenced Hopstott. So there's been a couple instances here where Cannon McIntosh and TMez have gotten into it. This wasn't just some random occurrence that happened at the Chili Bowl. Like, I think some of the most open wheel fans who don't follow midget racing full time, which we don't. I mean, no one pays attention to midget racing all year long, really, except for the state of Indiana, it seemed, and maybe some Badgers up in Wisconsin. They don't really pay attention to the scene. I don't know how they get 400 cars, and then there's really hard to get a car count with the class across the country. But regardless, I feel like most of us don't watch it. I feel like that's kind of making it closer to a Gateway Dirt Nationals, and where there's this class of people who show up in race, and then we don't really care about those guys once they leave. But that would be more so the cars in this scenario. Regardless, this is a situation that is kind of sticky and kind of got a lot of more question marks in it than we have answers to. And I think when we see a Cannon McIntosh pull that move, even though they were both in the race, and obviously he did believe that it was kind of like the slide or die, we got to make the race. And he quoted him from this instance, literally this instance that happened this year in June of 2023. I think Cannon McIntosh, when he's going down the back straightaway, knowing it's the last lap, thinking in his mind that it is I got to pass this sumbitch or not make the chili bowl. I would say that there was a lot of intent behind the contact and flipping TMez Meseraull. I think that this moment was playing through his mind, because obviously this moment was playing through his mind enough to quote him word for word on the scenario. So, interesting things. Some people need to maybe see context to some of the actions on the racetrack, because it ain't just sometimes some rich kid wrecking some working class guy. Sometimes there's some backgrounds like this that you would be like, oh, well, that's why he sent it in there and flipped old TMez on his lid. Now, the other angle to that, and I'm not here to bait and switch, even though the title or the thumbnail of the video says hook, line, and sinker, or slider. But this is a very interesting moment that ran through, and I was actually questioned or asked this, or actually was pointed out. This was pointed out to me. I didn't even think about it like this, but after I started thinking about it, it made sense to me. Because back to pulling behind the curtain and seeing what is actually happening behind the scenes and how things operate and who's rubbing who and patting on backs and how people get treated differently and why. There's not always, it's not just, oh, that guy got to jump a start, but this guy didn't. Why the hell did that happen? That's not all of a sudden, that's just not necessarily, it's not just a bad call. It's like you go in the behind the scenes of this thing and you get to see who's the buddies, who's the cliques, who's the people that are rubbing and who's the people that are shoving. And these calls are sometimes, oh, well, that kind of makes sense. I saw them hanging out the other day. So anyway, this instance that I'm about to show you was pointed out by the Australian that we were here watching the A-Main. We're about to head out to go to premiere tonight for the 360s. We got to talk about the 360s here in a second. We were watching the Corey Day interview, and every freaking sentence was and we had a great short, YouTube short we put out of that. It was hilarious. And he said he had the flu or whatever, and I'm like, okay, you had the flu? I mean, why was you telling anyone this? But it seemed like the biggest case of the flu in these interviews was the word. You could have, every sentence that ended, you could have went, It was very entertaining. At least TMez didn't his way out of the racetrack or the building. But the guy said, you know what happened with that TMez situation? Why didn't they black flag McIntosh? I was like, oh, they throw sliders like that all the time, and people, they rarely get black flagged for rough driving and stuff like that. He's like, well, it was fucking blatant. You could see he just drove in there and slammed him into the damn wall. And I'm like, well, yeah. And then you quote this history and all that makes sense. He just went in there and just dumped the guy. And I was like, nobody's ever been black flagged. And the Australian goes, mate, bull fucking shit. You know how they talk. They're all crazy and stuff. And he was like, bullshit. Don't you remember this? And I was sitting here and I was like, yes, I do remember this. That was, or for those who don't know it, this was a instance where Jason McDougal was making a run through the Chili Bowl and got spun by Ryan Bernal in a transfer spot coming to the line in a D feature. He was making a run through the soup. Ryan Bernal jumps off into the corner and spins Jason McDougal, and Ryan Bernal gets black flagged. Huh. I mean, obviously, it was a spin out, a little over entering the corner and just straight up clipped the rear end of McDougal and sent him around. Front wheels in the air. It was so damn bad. I mean, obviously, it was blatant, just as blatant as this Cannon McIntosh hitting TMez into the damn wall and sending him for a flip. I mean, I would call these about the same, and I don't even think Bernal and freaking McDougal don't have some bad past or history or anything like that. So the intent on this was less. The result was less. This car's on all fours, just spun around. And then the act of just getting in the corner a little hard and bumping it, barely touching the guy and spinning him out, versus just slide job, slingshot in there and bang that sumbitch into the wall and send him on his The act was way worse. So you would think that Cannon McIntosh would have got the black flag, correct? If this move right here constituted a black flag on a Jason McDougal who was putting on a show, and then the TMez, who's a guy who puts on a show just in general, fan favorite obviously, gets spun out like that by a guy, or flipped like that by a guy, he should get the black flag. But here's where we get into the curtains behind the show. First of all, obviously, TMez got out of the car. They had their issues with the officials. Now, you have to look at these situations as buddy systems behind the curtains. But then also these buddy systems are regionally based. You have to understand how these are regionally based. And some people are very regionally based. I mean, even down there in Oklahoma, look at how furious the rivalry is between Texas and OU. The furious rivalries that you have down there. And that's where I don't know for a fact, but this is where I would, based on my experiences in the world, this is where I would draw conclusions or draw lines and say, where is Jason McDougal from? Oh, he's from Oklahoma. Where's Ryan Burnell from? Oh, California. Okay. And then I would also say, in the same light, where is Cannon McIntosh from? Oklahoma. And where is TMez from? Oh, Indiana, from California, whatever. San Jose, a shark on the racetrack. So when I said that to the Australian, he's like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Now, I don't know this is fact, once again, just based on experiences behind the curtain of this racing world. But the act, the result, all the things, all add up to about the same action. And like I was explaining the other day, a lot of people call me black and white when it comes to this competition element of the sport. And I think officials and all this stuff need to be black and white. There is no room for gray areas. And that's why it bothers me when I see certain things behind the scenes. There's no room for gray areas. That's why referees in sports wear white and black stripes. So just the potentiality for those who are questioning it, like the Australian, why did Ryan Burnell get black flagged from his transfer spot when he spun out Jason McDougal versus why Cannon McIntosh did not get black flagged from his transfer spot for pretty much blatantly flipping TMez Meseraull into the wall off of turn 4. Oklahoma Sooners are Oklahoma Sooners. I'm just saying. And they're very proud of their boys up there. Very, very proud. So, anyways, on to the next subject. Kind of regionally based. That's just the whole scenario, whole kind of dissector situation of all this, everything to build up, and then the question mark. Why was this different? Why did Ryan Burnell get the stick of black and Cannon McIntosh did not? That's the questions I had, or some people had, and that's the answers that I think, once again, not factual, not true, could be complete BS, but that's what I see. That's what I see. When I get the question of that, that's what I see. So that's how I see it. Another scenario that happened last night, we went to the Simpson Speedway here in Australia. Very nice race track facility. Australian facilities. Once again, if you are ever going to come to Australia, if you're going to go for the fan side, because I'm trying to encompass all sides of the event, you want to bring a lawn chair. There is limited seating at these events. Some, like Premier, I'm going to be going there tonight. I'm hearing that it got a little bit better physical seating. I know that Perth does, I do believe. Eastern Creek, the new track that doesn't race because it was a tax scheme, it seems like to me, doesn't race. But at the end of the day, this track itself was a bull ring, an egg-shaped bull ring that really gets around the track very quick and in a hurry. Sheldon Hoddenchild was there. But their Facebook page needs some reworking. I don't know why the Sprint Car Hub guy ain't coming in here and helping them a little bit with at least a logo or something. They do have a nice website, though. It was $15,000 to win. That's the little logo, Simpson Speedway at the top left. $15,000 to win, 360 Sprint Car All-Star Challenge. Now, on the way to the racetrack, we were trying to dissect who was going to be there, me and the guy who was riding out. And he was like, oh, well, Carson Macedo's, somebody texted me and said, Macedo's there. And I was like, the guy said, oh, well, Macedo don't have a 360. How's he going to get there? And there's no way. The team don't have no 360. The Dyson Motorsports play. And then I was like, I don't know. I asked the guys at the 99 car, and he said, yeah, it's the 99 car. I was like, okay, I guess he's there. Somebody must have gave him a 360 or something. And there was a lot of 410 hitters there. Apparently on the way, the guy was telling me, 360 racing in Australia is not a big ordeal like it is in the United States. How you got regions like the West Coast who are like open 360 sprint cars. They're not ASCS. The 360s on the West Coast are, I've heard, drive like 410s, open heads or something like that. $65,000 rider 360s. He was like, he goes, even a good ASCS motor, which is a step down from that West Coast 360 motor, the Hammer 360s as I call them, even the ASCS motors that we have in America that are built correctly and well, like a Parker or something, those motors are superior to the 360 motors that are over here in racing, most of them at least. And so I don't know, once again, don't know, this is just what I was being explained. I don't know if I went to every car and pulled their hood and looked at everything they got going on. But when I got there, you had Brock Hallett there, you had Jamie Ville there, you had a bunch of guys from that region that were really, really good drivers in 360s, but they're really not full-time or even racing 360s at all most of the time. And that's the explanation I was given. If you're any good in sprint cars in Australia, you go to 410s. You don't do 360s. And we got to the A main. Carson Macedo was on the pole in the 99 car. And as you see, just for recollection, this was the schedule that they had for this Dyson car. And I do not see it. This Simpson race was not on the schedule. They had Toowoomba, and then they weren't going to race again until the President's Cup. Although they were at Avalon, so it's changed. That was a 410 race, but you don't see this $15,000 360 race on their schedule. But Macedo started on the pole. And it was a Macedo-style track. Now, you get these California guys on a short track with straightaways because they don't really have a lot of tracks with straightaways here in Australia. And Carson Macedo's gonna do some damage. I mean, it was an egg-shaped or avocado-shaped oval, they're calling it, racetrack, but it had a pretty tight 3 and 4, a decently wide 1 and 2, but it was up on the fence. California style, two Larry mixed with two Larry on one end, Silver Dollar on the other kind of situation, or two Larry on one end, Antioch on the other kind of situation with a little bank to it. So it was kind of, everybody's kind of described this Simpson track. It's kind of like the bull ring track, but he was starting on the front. And I'm still believing these Australian guys are really good. And there was Brock Hallett was right up there close to get him. A couple other guys that were really, really competitive and stout drivers that have beat Carson in the 410 or ran well against him. And I was like, I'm going to pick Brock Hallett. I'm going to pick one of y'all's local guys. They all picked Macedo and Sheldon. And Sheldon had an issue with the motor right after the race got going there in the beginning. But I was pulling for the local guys. That's how I've always done it. I like to see local talent shine. And I've been on this Australian guys are just that good. And that's why some of these, big time American names are getting their asses kicked. And then Carson Macedo goes out there and absolutely destroys the field, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, he probably could have lapped the entire field without a caution. I think he won the race by a half track. At one point, he was coming off of turn 4, and second place was just working their way through 1 and 2 and coming off of turn 2, just off the last, I wouldn't say tractor tire, but they got rid of those here. And when that race ended, and I went to the car with the buddy here to come back over here to the Avalon area, I said, man, that just kind of ruined everything for me. He goes, what do you mean? It's Macedo. He's that good. I know, but he just dominated y'all's guy. He made y'all look like another class out there. It really did look like he was just another class of driver on the racetrack. And I was very dejected. I felt bad for the Brock Halletts and all these guys because I felt like he exposed them. I mean, maybe it just took him a month or a few races, and now he just destroyed them. And then I was on the way back. Perth was racing. I was trying to tune in to watch that, and I got a communication from a guy named Gertie. And this guy named Gertie, he called me and he's like, "What do you think about that shit?" And I was like, "Man, I'm like really upset right now. I mean, I feel Macedo just embarrassed these Australian guys that I was kind of coming out here to kind of support and like and see another area of the country have these badass wheelmen, you know." And he was like, "You know, these Australian guys are pretty good. It's pretty funny. The Australians will pay them to come over here to race us to kind of show how good we are, but they won't take them over there and show how good they are most of the time. It ain't on a big stage. That don't happen. You see American drivers, most think, paid to come over here, but Australians got to like throw the bank out the window to try to go to America to display what they can do on their turf." But regardless, he was like, "Well, you know that motor was from Tarleton, right?" And I was like, "No, I did not." Well, he said in the post-race interview that Tarleton had next day a motor or something like that to the team so that they could run it. And I said, "You're telling me a West Coast 360 motor was shipped over here to run against these guys with Macedo?" He said something that Hodenshaw got one next date or something too. I don't know the factuality on that, but he's like, "Look, I don't know if it was a open or an ASCS." I was like, it makes no sense to me that Tarleton would have an ASCS motor laying around. And that open motor, or like $65,000 360 motor that they got over there on the West Coast. The best I remember when I was at Trophy Cup in 2019 and Justin Sanders ran fourth with an ASCS motor. I didn't really know much about 360 scene at that time, but I was hanging out on the West Coast. Justin Sanders ran fourth with an ASCS motor. I went up to Chico the next day and was talking with some people, and they were like, "So what happened last night at the track?" I was like, "Yeah, Sanders ran fourth with the ASCS motor. I don't know what that matters." He's an ASCS motor. Fourth? Wow. What do you mean? ASCS motor. What do you mean? He goes, "These motors over here on the West Coast, these 360s, he's like, they hum like 410s, buddy." He's like, when you got an ASCS motor, you get in there and you bend the car a certain way and you maybe make a little bobble and it kind of loses some momentum. It kind of hums a little bit and takes you down. He's like, when he had the opportunity to get into one of those open-headed, full-blown hammer, as I was nicknaming them at the time, hammer 360 motors, he said it reacted like a 410. It never zinged. You made a mistake. It was there. Like it goes. Now, once again, I don't know if the motor that was delivered next day, UPS FedExed over there, maybe UPS FedEx should be on the car after this, was a full-blown West Coast 360 motor. I'm already being told that if it was just an ASCS legal motor, that's like 100 horsepower advantage. I don't know if that's factual, but that's what they got like 100 horse, even if it's an ASCS, a good full-blown ASCS Parker or something motor. They got a lot of horsepower on the ones that are already over here because they take 410 racing seriously in Australia, not 360. And I was telling him, I was like, if it's the fucking open, if it's those open style 360s that they run on the West Coast, buddy, I mean, that makes an ASCS motor pale in comparison. So, knowing all this, and I don't even know, once again, don't know if it's the open motor that was sent in. I don't know why Tarleton would send an ASCS motor, because that's not what keeps up on the West Coast where they run 360s, where Tarleton is based out of. So I feel like after I got that phone call and received that information from Gertie, I felt way better about the whole, because I honestly, when I watched what he did to that field, man, he embarrassed every single Australian driver that was there outside of Callum Williamson and Jock Goodyear and like one or two other guys. He embarrassed the Jamie Villes. He embarrassed the Brock Halletts. He embarrassed these guys. It was disgusting. It was another class. And then when I walked out, it looked like it was another class of I felt like it was another class of driver. All the stuff I'd been saying, how these AUS guys look like they're just as good as the Americans, and these Americans are crying about a different tire and anything they can figure out because they're just getting their asses handed to them, went out the window when I saw that and was walking out to the car. And it wasn't until I received a few phone calls to learn that motor potentially was just another class ahead of all the motors that were supplied in the other vehicles, which weren't supplied or FedEx or UPS or whatever. That made me take a deep breath, because, okay, it's not that, I had to think for a second. It's not that Macedo was just that much better. It wasn't like he was just another class of driver. He just had another class of equipment. So when I say it looked like another class was out there, potentially, but I don't know the rule book for that All-Star 360 series around here, but potentially, it was another class of motor for sure. Even if it was a good, even if it was by the rule books, Tarleton don't spare a penny. Every damn little bit of performance perfection you could get out of the rule book that the All-Star circuit they got over here, which is the 360s. Whatever y'all got, that was like the cream of the crop. But then once again, back to behind the curtain, let's just say it may not have fallen into the rule book. I don't think that you're going to hear that told. I don't think you're going to get an American disqualified in Australia for anything. I just don't feel like that. Now, I'm not saying that it was wrong. Like I said, I tried to go look at the rule books, but the website's kind of iffy. But I just want everybody else to kind of take a breath. I know when Brock Hallett and some of these guys got out of the car and saw that they just got handed, like just slapped around. I mean, it was so disgusting to see how bad they got their asses handed to them by Carson Macedo. I don't know if some of these guys maybe got out of the car just as devastated as I was walking out. Like, my God, I can't beat that. There's no way. I just hope that maybe some of the people listen to this, because there was more than just a driver behind the wheel making the difference in that gap that was being put on y'all's ass last night. And it sounds like it was a very well, probably legal, put together, well-financed, badass 360 motor that was under the hood in combination with a badass team, badass crew, and one of the best damn sprint car drivers in the world, in Carson Macedo. One of. Well, you put all those together against apparently a 360 sprint car scene in Australia that's not necessarily taken as seriously as the 360 sprint car scene in Australia for sure, or in California for sure. That scene is taken very seriously. When you put those up against one another, that is a different class of racing. I would say that the class of 360 racing over here in Australia doesn't pale in comparison to ASCS and all that, but especially that West Coast. They got some things over there that are just humming and don't stop humming. Now, once again, it is still Carson Macedo, but with the degree he beat those guys, it didn't look normal. You know, it looked like another class. And once again, if it was 410s, I feel like the Australian 410 sprint car scene is, as far as equipment and cars and knowledge and setup and all this, is way closer to the American 410 scene. And I think that's why we've seen a lot of the 410 Australian guys do well when these guys are running 410 sprint cars over here, because it's a little more even of a playing field, or even of a seriousness as far as how they're taking the class and the car and the racing. But it seems like the 360 scene over here isn't taken as serious to put that amount of money into those vehicles to compete with a guy like Carson Macedo if you get shipped in one of those hammered 360s from the West Coast, or even just to buy the rule book ASCS motor that apparently would already be a huge advantage compared to the 360 equipment in this region of the country, or this region of the world. So I just wanted to put that out, because I'm sure some people may have looked at the results this morning and saw Carson Macedo wins by 25 seconds or something. I mean, it was bad, and was like, wow. And all these names, the Veals, the McHughes, the Hallets were all in there. Hickman was in there running well. I think there, once again, back just like that slider that you see happen in Cannon McIntosh, and you're just a casual viewer and you don't really know anything else, and then I show you, well, there's a background where these guys were running over each other, and he's saying slide or die in victory lane, rubbing it in Cannon McIntosh's face and making jokes about it, while Cannon's devastated and just lost a race in his mind because of something TMez did. There's a reason to it. I think that can be said for this as well when Carson Macedo destroys that field. There's reasons to it. I didn't feel like there was. When I got that conversation out of the way, I was like, okay, makes me feel better. I can go forward this week with the 410 racing action coming up at Borderline, Avalon, and Premier. And even tonight's 360 racing may be a little bit dominated by the Macedo team. But I feel like I could go forward and maybe watch the 410 racing with a little more understanding that, hey, the playing field's a little even here compared to what they got under the hood for that 99 car in the 360 division. So, regardless, just touching base on that. And once again, like I said, the 410s and everything coming out for the rest of the week going to be interesting. Of course, Perth race last night as well. Decent race. I believe Brad Sweet picked up the win. It did rubber down. Track was a little iffy. There was contact between Callum Williamson and Rico in the beginning of the race. Looked like a racing incident. I believe Williamson picked up the Speed Week Championship. Not sure on that. The Pert deal, it's hard to be at every spot at every moment of the day. But anyways, all the big boys coming over next week, clayperview.com. If you're an American, that's where you're going to want to watch all the racing action. They got broadcast packages for all of Speed Week racing action coming up this week. I believe it starts Tuesday in Australia or Wednesday in Australia. Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday in Australia, which Sunday is y'all Saturday. We are technically a day ahead. So go check that out. These other tracks, I'm going to be checking those out. They're going to be really cool. Haven't been to Borderline yet. Did get to check out Avalon. That should be entertaining. And then tonight, hopefully, at Premiere. So that's the scenario. That's the situation. That's what's going on. And, good win by Macedo. But I just when I learned that, I took a deep breath, and maybe some other racers or fans of local racers around here in the Australian area can take a big, deep breath as well. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's what we had to say. That's what we thought about today's racing action. I'm trying to get over to Premiere tonight. We got a lot of viewers in the channel here. We got a decent amount of chats. I guess we could give y'all a little bit of a chat up for a second. Let's see what y'all got to say about some of the things going on here. Broke Joe. People are still asking for Broke Joe. I don't understand it. Never trust a bald bulb. Oh, they're spamming the chat. Yeah, our 360s out here in California are on a whole nother level. Yeah, they really are. And if that motor that was sent from Tarleton to Macedo was a California 360 motor, a competitive one, that 360 is a extreme advantage over an ASCS motor. I don't know. Like I said, I was trying to find the rules for their class out here, but it seems like you really can't find it. But whatever's what's under the hood of that 99X car, if it is a California 360, it is a full-blown, every horsepower you can get. It's one of the most powerful 360 sprint car motors in the world. Are the ones that come out of California. Spike is a Broke Joe's chili snivel fed. Oh my God, they can't even spell. In the U.S., from what I understand, 360 motors are down there as much as the freaking 410s. Yeah, they are. Our 360 class is more budget-friendly, allowing those with lower budgets to have a crack at sprint cars. Well, and see, that's the question, and that's why I think I don't know what the rule book is, but let's just be honest. Are they going to black flag Cannon McIntosh in Oklahoma as an Oklahoma driver? Are they going to tear down Carson Macedo's motor and make sure it's legal to 360 rules in Australia? Are you really going to see that headline? They'll pull the whole damn operation and you won't see them race the rest of the week and never come back to Australia. I mean, that's the risk you take when you try to go crack motors. Like I said, I don't even know if they got a rule book. Maybe it's open. Maybe it's legal. Whatever they got going on over here, maybe it's perfectly fine. But if there is if it's a budget-friendly situation and there are rules to make it budget-friendly, then you have a situation with that 99X. If that's these are all ifs. If that's a West Coast 360 motor, I don't see that thing passing inspection. If they got rules that make it, you can't have this and you can't do this to these things or that things, that motor in there is one of the most powerful 360 sprint car motors in the world, above ASCS. You can't bring an ASCS motor and compete against those cars on the West Coast. West Coast power screams. Yes, it does. Australian motors rotate the other way around. That's so stupid. What's the difference there between the 360 motors down there and a 360 that's in Macedo's car? I don't know. I tried to go look for rules. Maybe they got a book somewhere. I tried to do a search and look up rules. I mean, I typed in All-Star Sprint Car rule book. The website's down. I mean, it's a very confusing situation. Maybe they pulled it down because they lose my, I don't know, but not going to happen. It's just the way it is. Let's see here. 360 series is based on the old school 360 motors and LS base motors. All of them would have been well down on power compared to the one that Macedo had. You mistyped there. I've heard that they're trying to turn the 360s into an LS class. I was actually talking to Shots about this the other day because he said his LS motor was actually over here in Australia, the one that he developed, and it was in a two-seater car running around at Parramatta in Sydney, and that's the last time he heard about it. But yeah, once again, I heard that even if you got a fully blown good ASCS 360 motor, that you can have a superior advantage compared to the ones that are around here. And once again, that West Coast 360 is just, my God. I mean, it drives like a 410 based on the drivers that I've been talking to. Bold conspiracy. Why did Seavey strip shoes gear off before going to victory lane? I heard there was some kind of fluid or something that was burning him potentially that got into his shoe and had soaked into the shoe. And that's why they were taking those shoes off, to try to cool his feet down because he was getting overheated. McIntosh needs a fat lip and a black eye. Okay, here we go. Keith Coons, Twitter crying. McIntosh didn't even apologize, and both were in a transfer spot. Rookie dumbass. Hopefully he learns. I mean, sounds like it was revenge from that wreck in January, or in June, earlier this 2023. Hey, Chaz, not sure if you have spoken about this. Any view on TMez getting kicked out? Well, he got kicked out and then let back in, and once again, I mean, I don't know if we want to play the interview where that happened earlier in the year. We saw Cannon McIntosh, kind of bark back when he got the interview, saying that, TMez says slide or die. Well, it's on him now and blah, blah, blah. This whole deal spurs back. This is June 2023. This old McIntosh TMez deal. I know we're not full-time midget watchers. This goes back. I mean, this was a situation. It wasn't like he was just quoting a TMez YouTube video. I mean, this right here happened earlier this year. So it wasn't just, two guys getting into a wreck and a rich kid wrecking the working man. There was an actual background to this TMez McIntosh. I mean, we can play it for you one more time right here. I mean,
yeah, you know what? It started out, Cannon, on that restart where you jumped the start. I don't know if you know this, but on the next one where you were leading, I let you go because the leader was you, okay? Yeah, I threw a slide job halfway down the track, and they called a yellow into one, and you know what? I still owe you from Hopstott. Remember Hopstott? Hey, I guess we're even. Hey, the guys give us a track that's slide or die, and then they don't expect us to be worked up. Hey, how you like it now?
So, I mean, this is not just like a one-off deal. There's actually a background. So I think that Cannon McIntosh, in his mind, believed it was for the transfer on the last corner, and he just didn't give a damn because he's experienced that moment where, Thomas Meseraull did something to him that he felt like cost him a win, a victory, and was on stage rubbing it in and yelling at him on flow. So I don't think that anybody cares or Cannon McIntosh cared too much if he wrecked him. But it did seem like once he was told by the Flow Racing interviewer that, did you know that both of y'all were already in the show, he did kind of have some remorse for the situation. But once again, this Thomas Meseraull, Cannon McIntosh thing didn't just happen today. This has been brewing. That video, the clip I just showed you, was from June of 2023, this last year, where McIntosh was dirtied, wronged, in his opinion, by Thomas Meseraull, and TMez is like, screw you, basically. So, yeah, but the difference is Cannon finished that race. Well, I mean, I get it, but the finishing of the race was the last corner. That was during a caution situation. What was the deal with Larson showing up to the Chili Bowl for one day, then not returning? He didn't get into the top two. And funny about that, they said if he got into the top two and transferred into Saturday night's A-Main, that he was going to try to finish the late model race in Vado and then fly to the Chili Bowl to make the A-Main. The actual Vado A-Main was racing right before the Chili Bowl A-Main. So even if Kyle Larson would have qualified for the A-Main today, he wouldn't have been able to make it to the race. So we're actually lucky in a way that Kyle Larson didn't transfer and didn't continue or didn't make the A main and wasn't going to try to fly over and get into the actual event, because he would have never been able to make it anyway, because the late model race A main was happening as they were pushing off for the A main of the Chili Bowl tonight. So they have a sprint car series in Victoria where they are running the CTC 525. That is the CTC 525 is the motor that they use in the pro sprint car, the pro sprint car division at Knoxville. So that's a pretty interesting motor. I would prefer the LS that Shots and them developed. I think it would be way better, but I love how the 45-year-olds fight with the teenagers. Well, teenagers are in the sport. Let's see here. Seavey's battery exploded. Okay, that's the official word. Okay, cool. I've been trying to throw this show together before we head off to the racetrack, which I got to actually hurry pretty well to get there and make that happen. Nice clean drive by Corey Day and holy shitballs, Dason Pursley. Once again, the track, some people weren't here. Some people weren't here earlier when I talked about the actual show of the Chili Bowl, the track rework perspective. I still think that it was a better show, even though it rubbered up at the end. I don't know how I lost sound. I still think it was a better show at the end, with the rubber and all that. And we had a wide kind of surface at the beginning of the show that raced to the, 20 to go point when it did start to rubber up. I thought that the track was better than the full track rework. That's a one-lane dyno session for 35 laps, and then that one lane maybe widens out or maybe just slicks off and rubbers down like we saw with the Bell and Larson scenario, because that was a full track rework. And then you saw the same situation where it rubbered down on the bottom, and then Christopher Bell Christopher Bell passed Larson and made him cry and beat him to the line on the last lap. You better run for the hills, Chaz. Premier Speedway is on now. Wow, Macedo for the win tonight in that special edition 360. Oh, God. Well, maybe I won't be able to make it tonight. Maybe I'll sit here and rethink my plans and potentially not go. Maybe that's what's going to happen now. 360s here are a budget class for guys who either can't afford to run 410s or guys learning their chops hoping to get to 410 one day. And that's what I was explained. And when you bring a guy like Macedo over here, and you have Tommy Tarleton, send him a damn West Coast 360, not an ASCS, a West Coast 360. Good, and y'all ain't even in ASCS 360s, and y'all are in a budget 360. Bye-bye, field. Bye-bye. I mean, the price tag on those West Coast 360s are $65,000. They're about the same price as a 410. That's why the West Coast is trying to switch to 410s, because if you don't have one of those Hammer 360s, if you got a $40,000 360 on the West Coast, ASCS or something, used 360, you can't keep up with those guys. And that's why they're trying to go to 410s, at least based on the interview I had with Dominic Selzy at Silver Dollar a couple years ago when they were talking about trying to push the 410s on the West Coast. His reasoning was that at least in the 410s, you get over a certain amount of horsepower on those short tracks, and you can keep up with a budget 410 versus a 900 horsepower rider. You can actually still compete with a 850, a Donat, 270. You can compete with those bigger motors in the 410 division because the car's breaking loose. Whereas that 360, it will take every amount of horsepower you can put into it. It ain't going to eclipse that rear spin power barrier. So, I mean, it looks like I may not be making Premier based on if they're already doing hot laps on the track. So it doesn't look like that's going to happen, unfortunately. Chaz, tell us about the Australian women at the races. I can't do that. We do have some vlogs coming up that we do have to work on. Maybe this is why I'm not going to be going to Premier. We filmed the entire trip all the way from Iowa to Australia to Avalon to Simpson last night, and it's a good video. It's a really good video. I doubt there will be any penalty, Chaz. Carson will have to live with the guilt. I don't think there's any guilt necessarily involved. It's not Carson Macedo's fault. It's not Tommy Tarleton's fault. It's not any of the Americans who may ship a badass motor over here to whoop y'all's ass. It's not their fault, that y'all don't take 360 racing serious, and that they do. So I don't know if there's technically guilt involved there. So I don't know if there's actually guilt. It depends on what y'all's rule book, if they actually know if it aligns correctly or not. I mean, that's up to them. I don't know. Do all the drivers have young blonde chicks? Nope. I don't understand. Somebody brought up Larson. Kyle Larson didn't impress in Cup last year either. Kyle Larson is one of the best drivers. Messiah Kyle has not yet ascended. Well, he got his ass whooped by the late model crowd. He continuously, he always has. I mean, he can win some races, but he's not all that. He's good, but late model guys has just got a way deeper roster than the sprint car world. They take it way more seriously. Almost how I was talking about from 360s of America to 360s of Australia is how serious the late model crowd takes dirt racing versus the sprint car crowd. The sprint car stars, they're sad they didn't make it to cup racing. The late model crowd is, when we get to super late models on dirt, we're at our version of cup racing. So they take it seriously. More money's in the sport, more competitive race cars, more competitive race car drivers. So I think that's why they handle Larson pretty well. I feel like most of the sprint car guys, when Larson passes them, that's like their life goal, and they don't care to pass him back. So that they just want to have lunch with them or get an autograph. Where the late model guys, they're out there to beat them. That's what they're doing this to live, But anyways, I don't know why the comments of polygamy and new men and women. I mean, it just makes no sense to me. But anyways, so that's the scenario. That's what's going on. Thanks for the comments there. We're just over an hour in the video. Good time to cut it off. We'll take a shower. We'll get all ready and see if we got time to get to premiere. Maybe we don't. Maybe this is the night we stay in and edit some video and get some actual work done. I would love to put these 2 videos or 1 video out. I could make it 2. We'll see how that works out with the time frames, because it's about, I'd say about 30 hours of footage that I have. So I got to take 30 hours of footage and put it down to 15 to 20 minutes. That takes a little bit of work and talent and ability. Some people think I don't do nothing or have no skill. I mean, good luck if you want to do that yourself. Go try it out. I heard somebody over the weekend actually coming over here. They were like, oh, my buddy's trying to do YouTube, and he said he tried it, and he's like, he couldn't believe how hard it was. Just to edit a video took him like 4 hours, and it was only 10 minutes long. Good luck. You think you can do it? Go and do it. Hey, good luck. Somebody just said, when are you coming to Perth? I will be, and somebody said, what's your view on the sprint car scene here in Australia? Good, bad, ugly. I think the good is the 410 scene. I think the bad is the 360 team. I think the ugly is potentially if guys are able to bring in other stuff that may not fit the, rule book, and they just get a pass because they're an American. That could be the ugly. That could be the ugly. I'm all about fairness. That's why I like the governing body and how they do things over here in Australia. It seems very black and white, and I like that a lot. But if that gray area is existing, that would be the ugly. But once again, I don't know. 360 scene is bad because apparently they just don't take it seriously. The guys already said it. I just read it out. They said that they take it as a budget class where people learn how to drive and try to get to 410s. It's not taken like an ASCS or a West Coast Sprint Car 360 scene. It's taken as a 305. It seems like they treat them like the 305 scene more than anything. Do Australian women have pouches in... Oh, God. That's disgusting. Some of these people are just disgusting. This guy deserves to be banned for that comment, actually. That's so misogynistic. Disgustingness. Oh, wow. Wow. I'm going to ban some of these guys going that next level on this stuff. I know that Spike set a precedent, but it's just not going to fly. It's just not going to fly. That's just so disrespectful to people and women. Oh, my God. And to a country, actually. Y'all people shouldn't be allowed. Yeah, I think we're going to ban Spike. He's leading the charge on this. Should go to premiere if it's your only chance to get there. It's not my only chance to get there. Otherwise, wait for the big 410 show. I think that might happen. I think based on what y'all are saying, if the hot laps have already started, I'm screwed. Let's see here. Looking at some chats before we get out of here. How many cars has Sheldon balled up so far? I don't think he has. Not sure. Chaz, when are you coming to Perth? That was the question I was trying to answer. Perth is going to be after the Australian title race. I am looking to stay after the Australian title race, or after the Classic, and stay for the Australian title race at Premier, kind of cover the local scene, and then we will ride in a truck all the way to Perth, and that's where we'll stay around for the Cricky, not the Crikey, the Cricky, 30,000 to win race at Perth. We plan to be there for that. There's a bunch of racing around and prior to that. The Cricky, or I've been saying Crikey and kind of making jokes. I feel like I need to apologize. Apparently these are two legendary racers of the area, and they died, and it's a memorial deal. I didn't get that information until last night. I felt like the biggest guilt trip douchebag of them all, I just thought it was a Crikey race, like, haha, a nice little catchphrase, not actually the last name of two people who were really important to the sprint car world of Australia and died. Like, I didn't see that connection. I feel really horrible about that. Anyone who felt offense, I'm sorry about that. The Classic is a must. Yes, I will be here for the Classic. I want to put the chat back on the screen, but with guys like Spike and some of these others saying what they're saying, it's so bad. It says Chaz has a new woman. He says misogynistic. No, I've said that for a long time to you, Spike. You are a very bad person when it comes to what you say. Although Spike is really just joking, but I don't know. Sometimes I feel like the jokes are going a little too far. Some of these things. Just saying. I mean, maybe some people laugh, but back to class. Which class is laughing at that joke? What's the weather like in Australia? It was actually very cold last night. I think it went down to, I still have Fahrenheit on my phone. So Fahrenheit last night, the track was 50 degrees. I didn't see that. I went in shorts and a long sleeve. The legs were cold. Obviously, I just came from Iowa where it's 10 degrees or 8 degrees or 0 now or negative 45 wind chill. But it was bad. The feet were kind of cold. The legs were cold. But the upper body, everything was okay. I was able to push through it. Apparently tonight at Premiere, looks like I'm not going to be able to make it. Would have been slightly colder than that. But apparently they say that one guy was like, well, that direction's Antarctica, and that's why. And I guess that's very true. So Antarctica, though, we pay attention to that. Although the North Pole, we don't really care about the North Pole, but that's where Santa Claus is from. You keep believing that it's a globe, little kids. You have to be approved by all the governments of the world to visit Antarctica. Just saying. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning into the show. Join the support. Links are in the description to do so. We're still trying to make it around. We got a few more names to put up here. We've just been running around. Maybe today we're not going to Premiere. Maybe I need to take a deep breath myself and calm down. You don't have to rush to Premiere. But anyways, links in the description. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe today. We got a lot of great content coming up. I'm telling you, these videos coming out are going to be next level. I mean, some of the stuff that we experience here are just amazing. And some of the things you're going to see, the party atmosphere, the different views from different racetracks and things of the sorts. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be awesome. And we're going to be having it all come out here on the channel. So be sure to subscribe so you get the notification of when we go live most of the time. And then when we post a new video onto the channel. And that subscription mark, we're trying to get to 10K. I'm not sure we're there right now, but we were getting really close. And y'all subscribing is definitely going to help us get there. Membership buttons down there if you want to join the support of the channel full time. But that's what we got to say. Leave a comment down there. Have your opinion as well. And we will catch you next time. Thanks for tuning in, ladies and gentlemen.
We can ride high, we can ride low. We can ride anywhere we need to go. We can ride all night up to the morning, as long as we make the show. We can be the best, or we can be the worst. So we can be the best thing you ever heard. With the motor singing and the grandstands ringing, it's hard to put it all in words. But this is how we ride, this is how we do. Riding mud, sliding up higher in the groove. Don't give a damn about the cash we're spending. With the time we got, we choose. We play it on the go, we stay out on the run. We all high ride. Out on the dirt ovals we play, life in the bright lights with no shades. Letting her go, letting her rip, letting her fly, tossing her in sideways, living the